Jackson Lucas and the Beyond the Resume podcast celebrate Affordable Housing Month. This May, we're bringing back some of our favorite interviews from past seasons of affordable housing leaders who continue to shape the real estate world. Thank you for tuning in. Now, here is Chris Papa.
All right, folks, welcome. I am your host, Chris Papa. Today we have a very special guest, Mr. Sean Kelly. Sean is the Executive Vice President at LNWA. How you doing, Sean?
We're great, Chris. Good to be with you.
Thanks for coming on. And now we were just discussing, you are in Burlington, Vermont, which is awesome. But the company's headquartered mainly out of Delaware. Is that correct?
That's right. Thank you. Burlington is awesome. Lovely place.
Yeah.
We have a beautiful lake and beautiful mountains. Our company has two main offices, Wilmington, Delaware, and Portland, Maine. And we operate in 10 states, mostly on the eastern seaboard, going as far west as Ohio and as far south as Georgia. And I have found myself somewhere in between here, working remotely, and that was pre-pandemic. So set me up in a good position to be able to, adapt to this new world, certainly. And we have a number of developers on our staff that have been primarily working remotely and certainly, have been able to adapt to the changing environment very quickly.
It seems like there's a few affordable shops with headquarters in Maine. Is there something about Maine that makes people invest in affordable housing, or is there like special laws there or something? I don't understand.
I know a number of affordable developers based out of Portland, Maine. They're all great people. I am not based in Maine, so I can't speak to that question, but I know that they are all highly skilled developers, and we know most of them, and they're great and have a tremendous impact on this industry, including my partner, David Lockery, who's a former director of the Maine State Housing Authority. He's based up.
Nice. Well, I'm going to dig into that. What is it about Maine? Well, can you tell the audience about LNWA and what you guys do and your history?
Sure. Founded in 1949, it stands for Leon N. Weiner and Associates, Inc. Leon was a very influential gentleman. He started as a single-family home builder and then pivoted to multifamily housing development in the 60s and 70s. So we've been in business for 72 years, and really our primary focus since his pivot has been multifamily housing. We focus mostly on affordable. However, we do have market rate housing in our portfolio, and we also have a hospitality arm of our business as well. And we're vertically integrated. I'm sure you've heard that term before. So we do have in-house property management and general contracting as well.
LNWA kind of rolls off the tongue a little easier than the
It does. But we make sure to honor Leon because, look that guy up. He was an incredible innovator, and his impact on affordable housing is lasting to this day.
Is there any certain type of affordable product you guys specialize in? Is it kind of all over?
Yeah. So our primary focus is development utilizing the low-income housing tax credit. We work both with the 9% competitive tax credit and also within the 4% program that also utilizes tax-exempt bonds. And we have a specialty in HUD finance projects as well. So we really take pride in having a deep understanding of the layered finance that is important in this business.
Gotcha. And where did you say your portfolio was? It's pretty spread out, right?
We're board. We have a big part of our portfolio in our home state of Delaware. We also work in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, as far west as Ohio. We have some properties in New York as well. And we have kind of uniquely, our hospitality portfolio is mostly concentrated in Georgia. And the reason for that is that back in when there was a slowdown in the market for developing multifamily, we actually were able to acquire and renovate the Jekyll Island Club Hotel utilizing the historic tax credit. So we kind of layered out affordable housing expertise and our tax credit expertise into an opportunity to acquire that hotel and renovate it. And it still is a wonderful property that we are heavily invested in to this day. And we also own and operate a 200-room Westin on Jekyll Island and have another dual-branded Marriott in development right now.
Cool. Nice. That's pretty cool. Do you know why Leon pivoted to affordable housing?
Leon was always very mission-oriented in his approach, and advocacy was and continues to be a big part of how our company operates. We are very involved in local and federal level advocacy. And Leon had been an innovator in working on the first racially integrated single-family neighborhood in Delaware in the 1950s.
Wow.
And that was a very big deal. And that process of really working with local officials and cobbling together resources and really bringing folks together in a way that, was very meaningful, left a lasting impact on him. And I think that there was a natural transition to the development of affordable housing as an outgrowth of that project Dunlease, which is for a wonderful community in Newcastle, Delaware to this day.
That is awesome. I did not know that. I work in real estate. I work with market rate and affordable. I've just been fascinated how much more involved the affordable developers have to become in the local community, right? When you go into develop a property wherever, Pennsylvania, like what's sort of the process there? Can you kind of take us through like the steps to develop an actual property in a location?
Well, that very much start locally. We because we work within the low-income housing tax credit program, that resource is allocated at the state level, and the states put together a plan for allocating that resource, what's called a qualified allocation plan. But within that qualified allocation plan, you are going to have, factors that are weighted when you are trying to obtain these resources. Well, that kind of gives us the starting point of locationally, how do we want to pursue new opportunities? And when we have that framework that is handed down through the qualified allocation plan, we then very quickly pivot to working with our local level partners. Now, that could be county or city folks, or even local supportive service providers, agencies that are invested in seeing affordable housing opportunities move forward in their communities. And we just work with them to understand, what resources they have available and perhaps what their goals are for the horizon. And we try to blend those with the goals of the state in the qualified allocation plan. And that's really how that gets rolling. There's a lot of local level resources, whether it be block grants, home and CDBG, or resources that are locational based that might be allocated to the Federal Home Loan Bank system. We need, these deals require a lot of layered finance. So we start by looking at our local stakeholders.
Gotcha. And then once you're building it, like, how do you get tenants after you build something?
Well,
it's different than like just putting up a sign and,
Yeah, well, unfortunately, the demand for affordable housing in the world we're living in right now means that it's very typical that we have waiting lists around the block when we're able to actually see one of our developments due to fruition. So finding residents that are in need of housing that we're able to rent at lower median income levels is really, that is the market is there because of the factors that exist in our country to this day.
Does the city have that list? Like how do you qualify? Like, who understands who qualifies? Is that your responsibility to get the residents in, make sure they qualify? Or are they already qualified through some city program? And then the city says, oh, these affordable units are coming online, get on the list. Is that how it works? Or how do you?
Well, so as part of the financing, obligate ourselves to rent at certain income level. And that is, a very important part of how we size our capital stack, some of the things that I mentioned earlier. So once we have an understanding of what income levels we will be renting to, we work with market analysts and folks like that to just make sure we understand that there is in fact a market there. But we have found that, if we're following the state priorities and following the local priorities, that the market is typically there. And then how that works in our shop is that we have wonderful compliance professional that will work with residents as they apply for tenancy, just like any other resident in a community, and they will verify their income backgrounds, and we will hopefully find a great place for them to live, and that's essentially the long and short of it.
Gotcha. Yeah, and then once they're in place, you provide like some sort of social service component, or the local city does. Is that? I've just seen, I guess, different resident populations need certain services, right? It's much more of a holistic approach to the tenant than in a market rate. How do you find those services?
Well, we work very closely with supportive service providers in all the communities that we work within. And our management company has in-house supportive service coordinators. So we'll have staff members that do outreach to bring things like legal aid, for example, or we do food education programs and things of that nature with our supportive service program. And so we have wonderful staff members that are constantly doing outreach in the community to bring these services to our properties.
Gotcha. So they're on the ground level. They kind of see what the residents need and kind of then coordinate with the local.
Very much so. Our supportive service staff are wonderful. They have gone above and beyond, certainly during the pandemic, to really support our residents. And I can't say enough about how they are on the ground level, understanding the needs of our residents and really helping them, continue to thrive.
Gotcha. So now, I mean, LNWA has been around a long time. How many people work there? Headcount wise, approximately?
We have about 230 staff members as of last count. That's inclusive of our development staff, our property management company, and our general contractor.
Gotcha. And then what do you envision over the next couple of years? Do you have any growth trajectory? I know there's been some changes. Well, maybe with the new administration in place, like what do you see changing in affordable housing and for LNWA specifically?
Well, we're very encouraged about the 4% credit lock. That is something that has been a part of the latest stimulus package, what is locking the 4% tax credit, and it was previously a floating rate. And we feel that is going to make the projects work that previously wouldn't. And when I say that, we do two things when our organization. We both do ground up new construction, but we also are very focused on the preservation of existing affordable housing. And we feel very encouraged that the 4% rate lock is going to enable us to do more preservation projects. We also have some wonderful opportunities in our pipeline that are going to be under construction in the next year. We have about 150 new units of affordable housing in 2 states that are on the precipice of closing. So we're continuing to pursue new construction activities. We are certainly concerned that there is a rapid rise in the price of lumber, for example, and the inputs that go into new construction, and how that might be offset with these resources that we have to work with. It is a concern of ours. Certainly, I think that on the immediate horizon, we are focused on preservation opportunities.
Gotcha. And you mentioned that, let's go into your background a little bit. You mentioned that you grew up in the business. Can you kind of go take us through your career?
Well, I did grow up in the business. My father, Kevin Kelly, is the chairman of our company and was a mentee of Leon Weiner's, and then eventually became his business partner. So it's been very rewarding for me. I've been in this business over a decade now, and I've had an opportunity to work on projects and rehabilitate projects that I actually worked as a construction laborer on in the summer when I was in high school. So really going full circle there. I think a big part of my knowledge base has been learned around the dinner table, because certainly discussing housing policy and discussing construction has been something that I have grown up with. And that has really enabled me now that in the development role to, I think, emphasize with the work that's done on out in the field and understand everything it takes to get these deals done. So very fortunate to be involved in this business. I love my work, and it's extremely rewarding. But we also are pretty sophisticated real estate developers, if I do say so myself. So I have gravitated towards the finance. I went to business school. I studied finance in my undergraduate days. So I have taken to working with our investors and our bankers, and we continue to grow as a company, bringing in a lot of young people that are very excited to be a part of this business. Because what I have been incredibly encouraged to see is that the amount of young people in our business that are really bought into the mission of affordable housing. It's really encouraging to see. Before that, I finished undergrad and immediately headed to a ski resort to try to figure that part of my life out. So I landed in Tahoe for a little bit, and then headed down to the San Francisco Bay Area and worked in tech for a little while, and then and loved my time out there, and then ended up heading back east after meeting a lovely young lady who is now my wife and the mother of my children. And we are settled back on the East Coast and doing great and continuing to grow our careers here.
That's awesome. It must be pretty cool to be working on a one single project on the construction side, kind of not seeing what the big picture is, and then years later kind of seeing why you're doing all that work, right? Kind of you get to see the granular level and kind of the macro level of all your projects, or those projects at least.
Very much so. But I think that was harder for me to understand at that time is the impact these projects have in the broader community. It's not just a building that is going up. And when you're young and you're carrying around drywall in 100 degrees to make a buck in the summertime, you may lose sight of the impact of a redevelopment in a dense urban community and what that means, and what bringing affordable housing to a community that desperately needs it means. And to be able to reflect back on my time working on some of these job sites and now understand how impactful this work is really, I can't say enough. It's a wonderful line of work.
Do you think it was beneficial to you to kind of, I've found people in the affordable world kind of are a little more worldly, than necessarily market rate, or people buying office buildings. They kind of, have seen different cultures and have ways of doing things, and you kind of got out of your comfort zone a little bit, it sounds like, and went out to the West Coast into a new place and had to figure out how to fit in and meet different people from different parts of the country. Do you think that's been beneficial to you as well?
Sure. I think that you have to be able to put yourself in the place of the local community. And, we're not always working in communities where we have an office or we previously had a presence. So we're working to make inroads and to build trust in these communities. And I think certainly this business teaches you how to do that, because we do need so much local cooperation and local buy-in. And perhaps that's part of the reason I've gravitated towards it, is because, I like working with people and like finding solutions to tricky problems, and certainly respect the enormous impact we have when we come into communities and fundamentally transform, the built environment that has been there in many cases in the same form for years, and we're going to come in and uproot the previous use, and we really need local buy-in. So I hope that certainly my travel and some of my working on both coasts has informed that.
Yeah, it's a big responsibility, right? You got to literally have these people's lives, not in your hands, but you have a big responsibility to these people. That's amazing. I mean, what advice would you give to someone who's, maybe coming out of college, maybe in like a different career, but like really has a passion for affordable housing, how to break in?
How to break in? Well, there's a lot of wonderful education out there, but you can just get a base level. This is a complicated industry, and just gaining a base level of understanding in the industry. We had a chance to listen to a few of your previous podcasts, Joel.
Oh, nice. Thanks.
And I am certainly very humbled and flattered to be sharing the airwaves with someone like Michael Novogradac, for example.
Yeah.
So it really is a legend in this business and has had such an impact on this business. So the answer to your question would be, Novogradac's, just as a baseline, their what they publish in terms of their I think he also does a podcast, and they do newsletters, and they have a lot of educational content on their website.
Market share for
it's second to none. He really is an industry leader, and if he hears this, I certainly appreciate everything. Doesn't appreciate everything he does, and then I think that this business does require a certain amount of financial acumen. So if you want to break into this business, you do have to be conversant with understanding spreadsheets. And, I live a lot of my life in Excel. So, for better or worse, that is part of this. So, educating yourself, not being entirely worried about, the paycheck from day one. I mean, we all have to eat. We all have to make our rent. But putting yourself in a position where you can find good mentors and people that will allow you to tag along and see how some of these things are done, that's really the best advice I could give to a young person.
Nice. Great advice. Sean, are you ready for the hot seat?
The hot seat. Let's do it.
Let's do it. Ooh, it's getting hot there. This jacket, this heavy jacket on. It's cold for California. This morning it was cold. I actually spoke to someone in Vegas. It was snowing in Vegas. These are the 5 questions I ask all of my guests. Any books that you recommend, whether it's involved with affordable housing, business, whatever, any good books that stood out to you lately?
Sure. So a couple that I have on my desk right now, I have been flipping through. It's not really a book you read end to end, but the Widow of Huga, Danish Secrets to Happy Living.
Those Danes are happy. I've met a few of them.
They're very happy. And, what's just interesting to me as someone who works in development, we do have a portion of our business that is market rate oriented. And I've had the opportunity to work on, design of really fancy community rooms at points. And the bands are there focused on lighting. And, there's a chapter on how appropriate lighting can bring some joy into your life. And I have found that very relevant when we've all been locked in our houses for the better part of a year.
Yeah. We've never noticed lighting more than now.
Yeah. So good lighting. That's one. A book that I read last year that I think should be required reading for everyone, and it's very, very powerful, is Between the World and Me, Ta-Nehisi Coates.
Oh, nice.
It's a book. It's written in the form of a letter from a father to his son, and it is a very, very powerful description of the Black experience in America. I just found that
I've heard of that one. Yeah.
To be an extremely powerful book, and I can't say enough about it. I would say that it's required reading as far as I'm concerned.
Awesome. How about any podcast recommendations besides Mr. Novogradac's?
Oh, sure. We're not a podcast these days because, I have little kids, so my screen time is limited. I usually have one of my AirPods in listening to something. 99% Invisible. That's a good one. I think, that podcast with Romy Mars is, oriented around the built environment and design. And I really like some of the topics that they cover on 99% Invisible. Another Bay Area podcast that I love, Masters of Scale with Reid Hoffman. He's obviously, heck innovator and very influential guy in Masters of Scale is just, I think, a really good book for any business, a podcast for any business owner, because it's really addressing current issues in the business environment. It's a podcast. So I could go on, listen to a lot of comedy, Bill Burr, classic, I get those in occasionally.
I work, I'm sure you're the same. We work so much. It's like, I want to listen to something not related to my work at all. Sometimes I listen to a lot of soccer podcasts and work podcasts get to me. I need to shut off my brain thinking about my work. Now you're in Vermont, you were in Tahoe, so I can take a guess at this, but why don't you tell everyone what you like to do outside of work?
Well, that was leading. Thank you for that. I do like to ski. I've been skiing my entire life. My wife and I actually have been getting more into ski touring. So we've been doing a bit of backcountry skiing this year. And we also, when we're not ski touring, on days when we can go and ski together, we're ski touring. And on days when we've got we are taking our 3.5-year-old to the magic carpet.
Yeah.
So in the winter time, we're up in the mountains, and in the summer, we like to spend as much time on the lake as possible.
Sounds like a good life. Yeah, what's ski touring? How do you get to the locations where you be skiing? Is it like cross country and then you go downhill? How's that work?
Yeah, it's like cross country. So you strap something to the bottom of your skis called a skin.
Okay.
And it allows you to have traction to walk uphill. Well, you have a binding that bulwarks and allows your heel to be free, just like a cross-country ski. And we walk up, and then we take the skins off, and we flip the binding foot, and we're able to ski down. Really cool.
That is so cool, yeah.
So the equipment has become very innovative in the last few years. It's opened up access to mountaineering and ski touring to a whole new audience.
Yeah, it's not just those that 1% that's just so extreme.
No, I recommend it. Day in the woods is a good day.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now, what advice would you give to your 20-year-old self?
We talked about this a little bit, stay focused on finding good mentors. I would certainly say that I was very driven, and, perhaps that was driven towards, finding the good payday and things like that. But, at 20 years old, you should really be working on building your experience. And when you build a knowledge base and an expertise, I think you will find that the dividends pay off further down the line. So focus on good mentors, focus on surrounding yourself with good people, and work hard.
Yeah, work hard. That's it. Yeah, definitely. Now, I am a recruiter. I'm sure people listening to this podcast are figuring out how to get jobs, possibly. You're in a senior leadership role. What do you look for when hiring people? Are there certain characteristics, qualities, anything? It doesn't have to be necessarily too specific.
Sure. To teach real engagement, people who are really focused on understanding the business. And I can usually tell who's done their homework in the first 5 minutes of meeting them. Like I said, there's a lot of opportunity to educate yourself on this business before you end up in that meeting. So I look for folks that have been diligent and are engaged in understanding what our business is all about. Because really, you can't teach that stuff as much as you can teach underwriting. I can teach someone how to underwrite one of these deals, but the drive to learn is something that, we're very focused on. We like people that are it's overused, but certainly a self-starter, and, someone that we can trust to kind of take a problem and dissect it themselves and come back to us with a list of, interesting questions, and that show that they understand how to solve for what we're looking for. Really, engagement, discipline, and certainly having a background in finance or accounting doesn't hurt in this business.
Yeah, that's great advice. Well, Sean Kelly, Executive Vice President at LNWA, thank you for sharing your story. That was great.
Thank you for listening to Beyond the Resume, a Jackson Lucas podcast where we take a deep dive into the career journeys of some of the top minds in real estate and equip you with the knowledge to move forward in your path towards the success you've envisioned. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Beyond the Resume. We're grateful for your support. All episodes of Beyond the Resume are brought to you by Jackson Lucas, building inclusive and diverse businesses through talent acquisition. Visit us at jacksonlucas.com